Excellencies, esteemed participants of the conference, 3 decades ago, we outlined 3 main directions for Lithuania's foreign policy. We agreed to pursue EU membership, NATO membership, and good neighborly relations. This became the doctrine on the basis of which the entire foreign policy of our country has been shaped almost since the restoration of Lithuania's independence. A decade on, a new, broader vision has emerged with the beginning of our membership of the European Union and NATO. It sees Lithuania as a regional leader, building on its membership of these organizations and actively developing neighborly relations. This year marks the 20th anniversary of Lithuania's membership of the European Union and NATO. On this occasion, the question naturally arises, where are we today? What have we done and what could have done better? Indeed, the anniversaries of membership of the European Union and NATO have highlighted achievements of which we can and we should be proud of. Lithuania has changed in many ways. We have taken a giant leap forward. We have become a richer, a more innovative and resilient country. Lithuania's voice is increasingly heard internationally. A stronger Lithuania today is better able to take care of not only its own well-being, but also that of its neighbors and friends. When Russia attacked Ukraine, we proved that we are in solidarity and ready to lend a helping hand. We ourselves have a very concrete security guarantees today. A NATO forward presence battle group is deployed in Lithuania, as well as a rotation of US troops, as well as NATO air policing mission. We have agreed and we have already started hosting a German brigade in Lithuania. New regional defense plans and a rotational air defense model were endorsed at the NATO summit in Vilnius. The past 20 years have given us more confidence in our own powers. After a long period of stomping around, we have finally started to invest in our own security. Today, we spend more than 3% of our GDP on defense, and that is far from the limit. As I have said many times before, for Lithuania to have a fully fledged army division in 2030, 5% of GDP would be necessary on defense every year. I believe we must go further. We really can when we want to. Together, we have withstood the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic, energy security, and illegal migration. Together, I believe we will withstand future crises by uniting our efforts, strengthening our security, and securing the necessary funding. But that alone is not enough. We cannot focus all our attention on combating fires and consequences while ignoring their root causes. 2 decades ago, when we drew up the guidelines for Lithuania's new foreign policy, we stressed that security and the prosperity of our citizens are 2 principal objectives of the state, so closely linked that it's impossible to distinguish between the beginning and the end of a state's domestic and foreign policy. We heard that Lithuania has already solved the most important security issues by joining NATO, so we will be able to focus more on the welfare of our citizens. It's been 20 years. Have we managed to build this welfare state palace? We have been catching up with the old EU member states for the last 20 years. But have we done everything to make social and economic exclusion a thing of the past? I think that we have not done enough so far. For a long time, we have neglected not only defense funding, but also our people, especially in the regions. Today, Lithuania is still struggling with income inequality. Large disparities between regions remain a serious problem. That is why reducing exclusion must become a key objective in all areas of public life. It is the most straightforward way to strengthen our country. Growing prosperity for all the people of Lithuania must be the antidote to forces that seek to divide us and antagonize us. In our pursuit of welfare and economic prosperity, we have so far managed to preserve and defend our values. And today, this is as important for our country as growing GDP. Values help us to stay on the course and maintain the course steady in the face of all the challenges. We can see very well that it is much harder for certain Eastern European countries with a similar phase, which are still floundering, unable to decide what they really are and where they should go. Just 600 kilometers from Vilnius is Ukraine, which has been fending off attacks from Moscow horde at the gates of Europe for more than 1,000 days. The Russians and North Koreans, enabled by Chinese resources and support and covered by Iranian drones, are trying to break the Ukrainian will to resist. Today, we have the advantage of being able to play an active role in the European Union and NATO. We must continue to lead by example in increasing defense spending, consolidating the resolve of our allies, and in our efforts to help Ukraine, whose fight gives us more time to strengthen our own security. It is clear that in the medium and long term, Russia will pose the greatest military threat to our security. Moscow is already waging a hybrid war against us and other NATO countries, against our values, against democracy, against the order based on international law, without hiding. And the occasional talk of peacekeeping or peace preserving is greatly exaggerated. It is necessary to counter the real-time attacks by Russia. In the face of the existential threat to Lithuania, strengthening the security and resilience of the state and deterring Russia must be a key objective of our domestic and foreign policy, because if there is no state, there is nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, today's challenges mean that we cannot focus all our attention on building our capacity. It is equally important to help and consistently support President Zelensky's victory plan and provide Ukraine with all the necessary tools for a successful defense. Ukraine's fight contributes directly to the common Euro-Atlantic security, and only Ukraine's victory over Russian imperialism will ensure a peaceful and secure Europe. And attempts to put pressure on Ukraine to negotiate on unfavorable terms, giving up its sovereignty and NATO security umbrella, run against the declared aim of peace. War can only be won if the free world unites to increase support. Fulfilling our commitments is not only our moral duty, but also a strategic security interest. As we look to the future and to possible peace talks, we must take a firm stance. Nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. The joint effort in Ukraine must deliver clear results on the battlefield. More long-range weapons will help destroy an aggressor's offensive capabilities on its own territory. Training troops in Ukraine or closer to its borders will increase the capacity of Ukrainian troops. Acquisitions from the Ukrainian defense industry will shorten supply chains, increase the resilience, and better equip Ukrainian troops. The transfer of frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine's defense industry will also contribute to this. Lithuania's bilateral aid to Ukraine since the start of the war has already reached 2% of GDP or 1.5 billion euros, and Lithuania plans to spend no less than 0.25% of GDP on military assistance to Ukraine each year. And I have no doubt that Lithuania's final contribution will be much larger, way larger. Today, Lithuania also strongly supports Ukraine's aspirations to join NATO. This would create a solid pillar of alliance defense in Eastern Europe, and it would resolve the issue of Europe's security architecture for decades to come. We all need a strong Europe with a strong focus on defense and security, as well as on strengthening the protection of the borders. The rapid development of the defense industry promises to bring added economic value as well. I believe that the appointment of the experienced new Vice President and High Representative of the European Commission, Kaja Kallas, as well as the appointment of the new Commissioner for Defense, Andrius Kubilius, will give a positive boost. There can be no doubt that the European Union will not be strong without a strong NATO and a strong transatlantic link that underpins our common security. The influence and leadership of the United States of America remains essential for the survival of a world order based on democratic values, security, and justice. And therefore, Lithuania's relationship with the United States has always been and will continue to be a priority of the highest strategic importance. Lithuania has been and will continue to be a supporter of strong transatlantic ties and their indispensability. And I will do my utmost to ensure that US President Donald Trump's focus on Lithuania and our region does not wane. And I have no doubt that the continued presence of the United States military in Lithuania will remain the strongest and the most credible deterrent. It is time to act. Working with the new US administration, we need to focus on a few key tasks. First, we need to ensure a strong and sustainable transatlantic ties. Contradictory signals and messages, especially about the European Union acting separately from the US, can only harm us. Secondly, we need to mobilize our full support and capabilities together with other Europeans so that we can not only confront Russia's aggression against Ukraine, but also achieve victory. America will have a key role to play here. Third, we must respond to the threat of the emerging of the new axis of evil: Russia, Belarus, China, North Korea, and Iran, with strong support for the US global agenda, including in the Indo-Pacific. To meet these challenges, we need to act and not wait. Above all, this means sharing the burden fairly. We need to increase European defense spending and capabilities, to maintain flexibility in military procurement, to improve EU-NATO coordination, and to avoid duplication of efforts with the alliance. In addition, we must stress to our allies across the Atlantic that their military and other assistance to Ukraine is vital. It is important not because European support is supposedly not enough, but because we can do more with American help. In order to counterbalance the emerging axis of evil of dictatorships, we must maintain a principled position. It is essential to seek a united position of the United Union and NATO states towards China, in line with the formulation agreed at the NATO summit in Washington, that China has become the key enabler of Russia's war against Ukraine. And finally, we need to work more closely with other democracies on economic and technological security. A common agenda in these areas is essential to ensure that the US continues to cooperate on trade and technology issues. Ladies and gentlemen, Our ambitious goals inevitably rest on the perspective of relations with our neighbors. Only by working together and speaking with one voice, we can achieve the best results. I am pleased to say that our relations with Poland, based on centuries of shared history, are the best they have been since Lithuania's independence. I trust that it will remain so. We are working together on the Three Seas Initiative and on strengthening NATO's eastern flank. We give priority to defense and security cooperation and to the further development of strategic transport and energy infrastructure projects with Poland. We aim to strengthen economic and cultural cooperation. In June of 2025, we will host the Bucharest 9 summit in Vilnius. This will be a wonderful opportunity to celebrate the 10th anniversary of this Polish-Romanian initiative by bringing together Central and Eastern European leaders in our capital. We also value the strong relations between Lithuania and other Baltic states, based on mutual respect and sincere friendship. Close relations with Riga and Tallinn provide a solid basis for further economic, cultural, and political cooperation. The formats of regular meetings of the presidents of the Baltic states, which I relaunched back in 2019, also serves for this purpose. Last week in Klaipėda, we celebrated together the 10th anniversary of the LNG terminal, which allowed us to switch away from Russian gas. And very soon, in February of 2025, we will together synchronize the Baltic electricity system with the continental European grid and complete integration into the European Union electricity market. It will be crucial to ensure connectivity and military mobility as soon as possible by implementing the Rail Baltica project with Poland, Latvia, and Estonia. And in the circumstances of the Russian war in Ukraine, the importance of the north-south transport corridor has increased critically. And we warmly welcome the accession of Sweden and Finland to NATO, and we will strive to further strengthen the security of the Baltic Sea region, and we will continue our cooperation with the Baltic and Nordic countries in various areas, making greater use of the existing formats. Lithuania's strategic partnership with Germany deserves special attention, and we will pursue its practical implementation in all areas. Germany's decision to deploy a brigade in Lithuania has once again demonstrated the strength of our partnership and the credibility of Germany as a partner. And we are ready to continue to foster deep and mutually beneficial relations in the fields of defense industry, science, innovation, and culture. Unfortunately, we do not have good news about Lithuania's other two neighbors. Russia and Belarus continue to systematically subvert the rules-based international order, using their diplomatic, political, and economic leverage to influence, threaten, and oppress the free and democratic countries of the Western world, including Lithuania. Are they succeeding? Not yet. But we can see that the Euro-Atlantic community, in particular the European Union and NATO, is increasingly turning inwards and becoming confused within its internal procedures. Under the pretext of a supposed fear of further escalations, we are avoiding to create new strategic dilemmas for Russia to challenge Kremlin regime strategically. And the West's traditional sources of power and influence, that is democracy, economic power, and military capability, are increasingly constrained by our own red lines, which prevent us from taking the lead and fighting back decisively. And I can assure you that this strategic, political, and moral cowardice will look very bad in the history textbooks. Indeed, What is stopping us today from turning to the Cold War era doctrines of containment of the Soviet Union and acting together to implement them? Have we forgotten Ronald Reagan's clear messages about the evil empire and acting accordingly? It is time to remember this. It is also about restoring the military potential of the then Western allies. We have been dreaming for too long, living in a world of idealism of our own making, when we were pressing the reset buttons with Russia and wanted to see it practically part of the Western world. We were badly mistaken. Reality has turned out to bite very hard. Let us be honest. Today, some capitals are still unwilling, if not no longer able, to admit the mistakes of the past. And this is one of the reasons why we still do not have an effective strategy for containing Russia and the authoritarian regimes that support it. However, I would like to believe that we will be able to agree on this at the next year's NATO summit in The Hague. Ladies and gentlemen, in the face of today's challenges, not only Lithuania, but also the entire democratic community of the West should look back to the generous, dignified, but at the same time uncompromising and unwavering legacy of Stasys Lozoraitis. More than many others, the long-serving head of the Lithuanian diplomacy grasped the significance and pragmatic importance of a values-based foreign policy. During the Soviet occupation, when the legitimate Lithuanian government was concentrated in a few surviving representations abroad, values-based policy was first and foremost a policy of survival. Today, we also see that a strong values-based policy is not a choice, but a necessity. There are increasing signs that not only the prosperity of Western civilization, but also its survival is in danger. We can only meet the growing pressure on our democratic values by maintaining support for the development of democratic processes beyond our borders. And that is why it is important that over the years, Vilnius has become a guiding star for the opposition fleeing authoritarian regimes. The dreams are cherished in our capital that Russia and Belarus will one day become liberal and democratic states. This is also an essential prerequisite for a safer future for Lithuania. I am confident that we will continue on this path to remain on the right side of history. May every country that defends democracy, freedom, and fundamental values find reliable allies and close friends in Lithuania. Thank you.